New England has long been captured by colonial love stories, and this one of Marblehead's Agnes Surriage, the fisherman's daughter and Sir Harry Frankland, collector of the Port of Boston, comes true. 19th century writers and poets such as Oliver Wendell Holmes could not use the word romantic enough in writing of this Cinderella story. But the 18th century was a much rougher and lustier time in New England and Europe. The historical truth was somewhat different. Libby Franck first heard this story 20 years ago. When she began her research, she met Marblehead's Marshall Bower, who lives on the site of the Fountain Inn where Harry first met Agnes in 1740. Together, they have pored over old newspapers and recently digitized books, piecing together a very different story than the one written by Elias Nason, who lived in the Hopkinton County estate, once the home of Sir Harry and Lady Frankland. The Frankland family saga, set in India, Yorkshire, London, Boston, Marblehead, Hopkinton, and Lisbon, is entwined with the East India Company, Massachusetts colonial government, and the slave trade. A rich environment for the powerful attraction of Sir Harry the dilettante and Agnes the comely, courageous girl who transformed herself into a grand lady and English dame. The colonial dwellings they occupied are long gone. Only traces of the garden terraces remain in the Hopkinton Inn. But the plucky courage and family loyalty of the codfish widows of Marblehead still resonate with today's listeners. If it were not for Agnes, Sir Harry and all his clan would only be a footnote in history.
I was 14 years old. I was working at the Fountain Inn, which was a favorite spot for smugglers. I was wearing a ripped, dirty gown and barefoot, and I was scrubbing the floor, and I looked up, and there was the most beautiful man I had ever seen. His hair was tied back. He was wearing velvet breeches, an embroidered vest, and a satin jacket. But it was his hands that I noticed. They were white, like a lady's, and he was wearing rings. I stood up and I curtsied, and he said, "What's your name, child?" And I said, "Agnes Surridge, sir." And he says to me, "Well, Agnes, tell me, does Marblehead always smell like this?" "Oh, yes, sir," I said. "It's the fish, you see, the cod." "Well, Agnes, I need some men to unload my barrels of rum. Do you know where I might find some?" "Yes, sir, my brothers." "Bring them. I'll pay them well. And you too." And he took up my rough red hand in his soft white one and kissed it while staring into my eyes. Well, I ran home and told my brothers there was work. Now, my mother had told me what men like this fancy gentleman do to girls like me. But what is there for you, Agnes, but a fisherman husband, bearing child after child, never enough money? You're young and fine-looking. Who knows what you might become? Well, that elegant gentleman, Mr. Frankland, came back to the Fountain Inn again and again, and he told me tales of pagan gods, of Jove, Venus, Bacchus. He said, "In my chamber, I have a book with drawings of those divinities." Well, I did want to see the drawings in that book. So I went to his chamber.